you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another episode of How to Get Good. Now today is going to be a follow-up from the previous video, which was about unlocking and leveling skills, and this is more about passives and how much you should pay attention to what they do. Passives are probably the most important skills in the game, yet you never really press any of the buttons for them, or do you? Sometimes your activation of skills or your movement or actions in combat can make passives do other things rather than them just sitting there, while others are static and just give you stats. But we're going to go over a few that are very important for your overall performance. Now, I'm not going to go over all the details of all the different weapon skill lines too much. I'm just going to highlight what you should be paying attention to. When it comes to skill lines themselves, that will be a separate video because it can get quite complex. But take this with a pinch of salt. I'm going to try and explain this in a manner that makes sense so that you can apply it to your own setup. Now, every single class has 4 passives in each skill line, and each one is worth 2 skill points. So you'll start off with a base version at 1, and then it'll upgrade at 2. But on 0, obviously, you get nothing. You do have to pay attention to these passives. Now, just as an example, while using skills, this doesn't say any specific skill, while using skills, this says if you do damage with a burn or poison status effect, you will, of course, get resources back depending on which type lands. So that's very specific. It doesn't say Ardent Flame ability. It just says skills. Now, this is, however, very different. When you deal direct damage, so there's a damage type there, with an Ardent Flame ability, so there's another condition, you'll reduce the enemy's movement speed. So basically, if I hit something with this Venom Claw, I will slow them down. But if I hit them with my Execute for my two-hander, I will not, because that's not an Ardent Flame ability. So, there are conditions to these passives. Don't just pick up the passives and say, I've got them all. Understand what they do. This is a prime example of one of 2 do I get this abilities or not type passives. This increases your flame damage of their effect on the Dragon Knight. Now, on this front bar, we're ignoring the bow abilities. That was from the previous video about how to level stuff up. We don't have any area of effect flame on us. However, we still want the passive because this is a poison ability. And this second part of the passive says it decreases the cost of your stamina poison abilities by 25%. So while the first part is useless to us for this particular bar, there are other ways. Yes, we don't need to worry about that today. But while the first part seems useless, the second part is useful. This also happens in Draconic Power as well. If I'm not using any of these abilities at all, I'm actually using one at the moment, so we'll take that off. If I'm not using any abilities from this skill line at all, I don't need this ability. So while a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. That's useless, so don't waste your skill points if you're not using any. And this one here looks on the surface like it's the same. This one increases your health recovery by 5% for each of these abilities slotted. Note, this one said while ability is active. This one says while an ability is slotted. So this one needs to have a skill running. This one just needs to be on your bar. But we have nothing on our bar. So we get no bonus. So we don't really need this passive, do we? Yes, we do. Because just like the other ability I showed you a moment ago with 2 different effects, this one increases the range of all your melee attacks by 2 meters. So it has to be an instacast ability though. So here's the condition. This ability here is an instacast melee ability. This increases its range from 5 to 7. So while we don't need the passive for the health recovery, we do need the passive for the range. So this is another prime example of where at first you could look at it and think I don't need it, but then realize that you do. So hopefully this is kind of helping towards planning your passives as to which ones you do invest your skill points in and which ones you don't. But there are many flat ones as well. Increases your damage you block. You will block, get it. Very simple. But you need to know that it's there. You can't just buy it and expect everything to work perfectly. I mean, of course, that will affect you, but it helps to know why. Now, when it comes to weapon skills, it's very much the same sort of thing. lots of passives in the game are beneficial to the weapon type, the armor type, or the skill type. So it's not an overall bonus. But then we have also some that are an overall bonus. So, much like this one just gives us spell resistance. Great. Light armor passives, however, this one gives us spell resistance based on how many pieces are worn. So when you're looking at your stats and you're thinking, well, I only have 363 extra. Why don't I have more than that? Well, that's because you're wearing one piece of light armor. If you wanted more, you need more pieces of light armor. Stuff like that. Pay attention to those. Also, you've got other really, really important ones. Now, for example, medium armor, this, and this, and this, they're all very important. Make sure you read them. They all gain strength based on the amount of medium armor pieces worn. But this one here does need medium armor worn, but it requires 5 pieces. You must have 5 pieces or more. If you put on 4 pieces and wonder where your weapon damage has gone, this is why. Same for the active skills as well. Every single active skill in all of the armor skill lines, so light, medium, or heavy, the active skill that you can buy and level up and morph needs 5 pieces minimum. If your armor breaks, this skill won't work and this passive will go away. So pay attention. You need to understand these very important, yet basic passives. Now, some of the more important everyday ones are things like Fighters Guild, Undaunted, and here is why they're important. For example, we're not going to go over the weapon damage increase. This is important because it means that each ability on your bar from this skill line does increase this. So that's a very simple condition, but that's not what we're going to go to. Stuff like this. If you get Banish the Wicked, don't just buy it and not know what it does. When you kill Undead Daedra or Werewolf, you actually generate 9 ultimate per kill if you get the kill and blow. So now you know, by understanding this passive, that if you are up against those types of enemies, you've got a little bit of freedom as far as your ultimate usage is concerned. Because instead of holding on to it forever and ever and ever until a boss, you may be able to nuke a room of this enemy type and get loads and loads back, ready to use it again on the boss. So it can actually improve the speed of your runs. Very simple passive, very simple application. Yet again, people don't necessarily read it. Undaunted, this one is not read at all. So, when you activate any synergy in the game, it will be beneficial to you. It will give you a heal, a damage shield, it will do damage output, it will do something that will help you or your group, or give resources back, whatever. Every single synergy in the game that you take, regardless of what it does, will give you 4% of all of your resources back. Your maximum health, your maximum stamina, and your maximum magicka. So why not take them? But people don't read that. Pay attention. Every one you take will give you stuff back, even if the synergy itself is not designed to give resources back by its bonus or buff. And this one, of course, is very important. I see lots of people with very, very squishy new characters shouting, why am I dying? Why am I dying? First of all, mechanics, of course. Secondly, learning. But thirdly, I've seen such low health bars, and this small percentage to increase of your resources actually does benefit a hell of a lot, especially when you start stacking it with armor passives. So if you have the heavy armor passives for Juggernaut, you'll have a 2% increase per heavy piece worn. If you have this passive, you'll have a 2% increase for each piece of different armor worn. I've seen people in my streams before come up and they're like, well, I've got 3 pieces of armor and I don't know why I haven't got a 6% bonus. No, it's 3 different types of armor. So a heavy type will give you a bonus, a medium type will give you a bonus, and a light type will give you a bonus. This is what's called 5-1-1, where people have 7 pieces of armor and they tend to put 1 heavy, 1 light, and 5 medium, or in any other order. If you don't do this, for each type, light, medium, or heavy that you take away, that will obviously reduce it. So if you are using 5-1-1, you will not only benefit from the 6% here for health, magic, and stamina, but you'll also benefit from stuff like this in the heavy armor passive, which gives you more health. So you can see how these start stacking up together quite nicely. Another prime example of that is Mage's Guild. Now, there's a passive in here which will actually increase your, when it's maxed out, your Mage's Guild bonuses. So you'll have an increased 2% mag recovery and max magic for each ability on your bar. So you can have an increased magic pool up to 8% here, 10% if you use the ultimate. Tiny, tiny percentages make up your stats. It's not stats alone, but it will increase your survivability, your resource pool, all that good stuff. You have to make sure you pay attention to what each one does. They do have their own conditions. Some are flat, some aren't. Stuff like this, don't just go and buy them all if you never go to Cyrodiil. If you use Vigor, for example, great, you've got a heal. But what about if you don't go to Cyrodiil? You're not farming mines and keeps and lumber mills and all that kind of stuff, so this is irrelevant. But if you do, that'll help. This, however, is very different as well, because these are based on Cyrodiil alone. This is when you're near a keep or when you're taking over resources. This one, however, is you generate 20 ultimate when you kill an enemy player. So this now goes into Battlegrounds. Now, I don't want to go too much further into this because it's very glazed over to some respect, but it's also going to get complicated if we go into every single passive. But I'm just trying to highlight the difference between buying a passive because someone told you to and actually reading it and fully understanding it yourself. Sometimes you can manipulate a situation to deliberately benefit from a passive rather than just running along and it happening for you and you're not knowing why. Here is a prime example. You kill a player, you get 20 ultimate. If you kill Undead Daedra Werewolf, you get 9 ultimate. So if you're in Imperial City Sewers right now, and you're in a fight with a player, and there's 10 zombies and 1 player, and you drop a Destro ulti, you just got 90 ultimate back from all the undead you killed, and you got 20 back from the player you killed. That helps. And all you needed to do there was understand 2 passives and pay attention to the fight in order to benefit from it. So, you do have also passives in here for your crafting. Some of them will give you stuff back in the mail. Some of them will increase your chances of deconstructing and getting materials, or refining and getting materials. But I am going to go over one that is very, very important that I think everyone should unlock. And that is medicinal use. Your potions will last around 35, 36 seconds or so if you craft them, if you're going for just resource gains or just major buff types. But with this passive, they last 47. Your cooldown is 45. So it makes sense to get this passive. If you're going for longer duration potions, for longer durated buffs rather than just burst stuff or immovable, then, I mean, I'd get those anyway because it's a really good passive, but this will mean that you can have 100% uptime on your potions. Your potions are consumable buffs. They're not just there to use when you run out. In fact, never do that. Don't hold on to your potion because they're precious and expensive and wait until you're almost run out and then pop one, because your next spell is going to make it all go away again. Make sure that you take advantage of their duration. Have them running all the time. Now, I will be going over weapon passives and how to utilize them, and armor passives and how to benefit fully from those, and some of the other stuff as well in a later video. But again, hopefully this was not too glazed over, but accurate enough at the same time for you to understand what you should now be paying attention to. Every single class has their own individual skill lines, so they are all very, very different. But the one thing I must stress, especially for new players, is don't just get them because they're there. Read them first. So first of all, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribed, of course, please do hit that button. It is free. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when I'm uploading videos. Also, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com, where all the written guides are. And this one is on YouTube. Hit the join button. You'll see loads of different membership options there. You can get emotes, you can get badges, you can get all different types of things, and sometimes just sneak peeks to some bloopers and such. But there's a few options there. You don't have to partake in those if you don't want to, but take a look. You might find something you like. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.